Are we close to ready, Mr. Stark? All right. Okay. Steve, are we ready? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, we can start without that.
Okay, all right. I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's the regular Housing and Redevelopment Authority meeting. And first item is roll call.
Commissioner Rubenstein. Here. Commissioner Gotel.
Here.
Commissioner Gepner.
Here.
Commissioner Quam.
Here.
And Chair Sandal.
Here. Okay, first item on the agenda is approval of minutes of the regular HRA meeting of July 15th, 2013, and the special HRA meeting of July 29th, 2013.
I'll move the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion or corrections? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then we have the consent calendar. Mr. Devich?
Thank you, Chair Sandal, members of the HRA. The consent calendar, for those watching and those in the audience, usually contains several separate items which are acted upon by the HRA in one motion. Once the consent calendar has been approved, the individual items and the recommended actions will also have been approved. Tonight, we only have one item on the consent calendar, which is item A. Consideration of approval of authorizing staff to enter into a professional services contract with Shatted Marketing Consulting, LLC, for services related to research and planning of marketing housing programs to Richfield residents. Oh, I'm sorry, there's B. Consideration of approval of a resolution consenting to a driveway easement and a reciprocal easement agreement related to the Lindale Gardens development. And that concludes tonight's consent calendar.
Madam Chair, I'll move the consent.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And I apologize, I meant to ask this question and did not. On item B, it surprised me when I was looking at the map where the easement runs on the Lindale Gardens site. Lot 4 is essentially a landlocked parcel. I didn't realize that when we were looking at it.
You know, I'm really not that familiar, John. John had to run upstairs to get some items or get a
Okay.
flash drive for the budget, so
Oh,
John gets
budget details. Oh, well.
budget. But we have a question on the one consent item.
While you're here, okay,
Sure.
thank you. And I apologize, I tried calling you and I looked at the clock and it was 4:30, so I didn't get there in time. We're proposing an easement, which I have no objection to, so that Lot 4 of the Lindale Gardens will have access to the street, which is a good plan. But I didn't recall, and I guess it's not real obvious from the larger map, that Lot 4 is not adjacent to the street. And that there's this, is it because there's a driveway for exiting at that point? Is that what that is? It shows Lot 3 as having a long leg adjacent to Lindale Avenue. Is that going to be a driveway, or why was that left that way?
Is there a page number at the top of what you're looking at?
3B3, and then 3B4.
Yeah, 3B4 is probably more would be easier to look at.
Yeah, I'm afraid I just don't know the answer.
Doris?
Same. On the very left, it talks about position of the landmark number summit determined by Torrance case. East of the grass lake, and then also bottom. That was when that case was called grass lake, lake, or is this something that stated on this map?
No, that's because that's how the documents are currently recorded, naming that body of water. So Outlot A is something that's going to be dedicated to the city by the developer. And the legal descriptions right now talk about Grass Lake.
Should we put an addendum or an appendix onto that legal description, since Grass Lake is part of Minneapolis and Richfield Lake, although at one time they were one body of water, they are no longer.
You know, other than the HRA looking at a document like this tonight, the only people that are ever going to look at this are surveyors.
Okay.
And they're going to know that, you know, the names of bodies, the names of things change, but how it's recorded is Grass Lake.
Okay.
All right, it's not going to prevent me from supporting this. I just was curious why we left that little alleyway along 30 feet wide. It sounds like a roadway.
Madam Chair, actually, I would just like to comment on the first item.
Oh, I guess we shouldn't have put them on the consent. Okay.
Okay, well, I don't know, I just want to comment because I saw that we're going to be doing some marketing, and I know that for a long time we talked about the need for this, and I'm so grateful to see the HRA, first of all, we have enough dollars, we put some dollars aside to do this, but that we're going to try to do some marketing for our city and for the great programs that we have in the housing. I can't tell you how many times I talk to a real estate agent, and they have no idea that we have this. Of course, we hold those symposiums, I know we do, but it's just really great to see if we can get this out a little further. It would be really great for our residents. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So any further discussion on the
Madam
consent
Chair.
calendar? Okay, go
Just
ahead.
looking at this map, I think in 3B3, what you're talking about is indicated as having a 49-foot, roughly 49.06 foot depth from Lindale. So it isn't a 3-foot leg on there.
Oh, no, 30 was what I said.
Oh, I see,
Yeah.
okay.
It's the curb.
And the curb, the easement is just to give them,
Oh, access, yeah,
Access,
that I
right,
understand. It
yeah.
makes sense to me. I'm just surprised. Couldn't remember from the prior layouts what that strip was for, other than maybe a driveway exit or something. So, okay, any further discussion?
I have a quick question. When I looked at this, I didn't turn it over to see what, because I was looking for the drive. The lot 4 is the lot that currently isn't going to be, there isn't a plan for it, is that correct?
And that's the one the HRA
Is getting, yeah.
is getting, yeah, okay. All right, any further questions? Hearing none, I'll call the question to approve the consent calendar. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item is 4. Now we're ready for the presentation of the HRA Annual Tax Increments District Status Update.
Thank you, Chair Sandal, members of the HRA. Rebecca from Ellers is here, and she has a presentation to make.
Thank you, go ahead. Thanks.
Good evening, Rebecca Kurtz with Ellers. As we've done in the past, I'm here to just give an update of the status of your tax increment districts. I believe you do have a summary packet in your report, so I'm not going to go through all of it, but I do want to highlight a few things. First, as you are aware, the city currently has 9 tax increment districts that are active. And with our analysis this year, the city will be able to meet all of its tax increment pay-as-you-go and bond obligations. As you may recall, the city has 3 types of debt associated with the TIF districts. Those are the pay-as-you-go, where the payment is directly tied to the amount of taxes received on that. So to the extent that the taxes are paid, the developer receives a portion of that back to pay off the note. There also are general obligation TIF notes on a couple of the districts where the tax increment is pledged to make the bond payment, and in the event that the tax increment was not sufficient to make the bond payment, the HRA or the city would be obligated to levy to make the shortfall. And again, we are not anticipating any concern with making the pay-as-you-go payments or the GO bond payments. The third type of obligation that the city has are interfund loans where the HRA has, I should say, where the HRA has loaned money from existing funds and then is anticipating tax increment to pay it back. With that, some of the obligations, or most of them, the HRA will be able to make the payments on. The one that I do want to point out is the 1.1 million interfund loan that is tied with the Lindale Gateway TIF District or the Kensington project. As you may recall, there are two obligations with that. Can I just move this? Oh, no, that's okay. There are two obligations with that district, and one of them is a general obligation bond for 2.9 million. We are anticipating or projecting that there will be sufficient tax increment revenues to make those payments in full, so we are not anticipating the need to levy. For the 1.1 million interfund loan, we are anticipating that there will be increment coming in to pay a portion of the principal. However, with current projections, we are not anticipating that that would be paid in full with principal and interest. With that, there still is, the district does not get decertified until 2029, so there still is time. As we do our projections, we do try to be conservative, so we are looking at current market values and the current situation and projecting that forward. I, of course, have no guarantee, but I'm hoping that as we've seen recently, we are at the lower end of market values. We've seen them stabilize this year in Richfield as we completed the pay-as-you-go notes, and are hoping to see them increase. So to the extent that there is an increase in market value, the amount of increment that will be available to further pay off that interfund loan will be increased. We did do an analysis, and to pay off the principal of that in full, we would need about a 2.7% inflation annually from now until the end of the district. That might be a little high, but we'll see, and we'll continue to monitor that to let you know how that is coming as we move forward. A couple other items that I just would like to point out is that there are 3 districts that the city has established that are not generating increment. One of them is the Cedar Core TIF District, which I know there are different proposals that have been presented or may be presented in the near future. And then new to the status update this year is the 2010 Housing TIF District, or the Lindale Plaza development. That we are anticipating will have its first increment next year. And then the Lindale Gardens TIF District, which we are also anticipating will have increment in the very near future. The final item that I would like to just highlight is, as many of you may recall, the HRA was able to decertify the Interstate Lindale Nicollet, or ILN TIF District, at the end of 2012. All of the obligations associated with that district were paid off in December. And so for taxes payable 2013, the city's tax capacity increased at $1,802,000 roughly. And what that means in actual city portion of the tax revenue equates to about $1.18 million in city taxes. That number does not include the county or the school district taxes that go with it. So with that, like I said, the other districts that I did not specifically point out have pay-as-you-go obligations for the most part, and all of those obligations will be able to be met. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anyone have any questions? Doris?
I'm not the greatest of financial wizards, but when I was reading about the Lindale Gateway West District, and I understand that we can meet the obligations through various different interfund loans, et cetera. But I was wondering also, are any of these bonds or obligations renegotiable, and would that be a wise thing for us to consider if that is a possibility?
Well, for specifically the Lindale Gateway West District, that bond was refunded for a lower interest rate in 2012. And so that was the portion that was a general obligation secured by the taxes to the extent that TIF was not available, or there was not sufficient TIF to pay the debt. So we were able to lower those debt service payments by refunding the bond last year. And as far as the interfund loan, again, that is an obligation that the HRA made to itself. It currently, under the documents, has a 5% interest rate, so the HRA is able to lower that if they wanted to. Under the documents, the HRA is not required to pay itself back by law, and so I think that that is one that we'll continue to keep our eye on, and I guess my recommendation at this point would be to continue to collect the increment and kind of see where we go with it, continue to monitor it, and as we get closer and know what the final payoff will be, hopefully as we see market values increase and that tax increment increase, we can capture as much as we can to pay off as much as we can with principal and interest.
Thank you. I just didn't recall that we had already been renegotiated.
Yep, just recently, just last year.
Right.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes.
Who is the interfund loan owed to? What fund?
I believe it is paid back to the development fund.
Is that
Yeah.
right?
So it
Yeah.
is,
Okay.
it would be non-tax increment money, so to the extent it is paid back, it could be used on any development projects without the restrictions of the tax increment.
Thank you. I hope they get it all paid back.
Could help us out.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, I'll move that we accept the Richfield Housing and Redevelopment Authority Annual Tax Increment District Status Update. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5. Mr. Devich?
Thank you, Chair Sandall, members of the HRA. Item number 5 is a public hearing and consideration of a resolution authorizing the sale of 6808 14th Avenue to John Hughes and Kathleen F. Walsh Hughes, and a contract for private development with John Hughes and Catherine F. Walsh Hughes for the construction of a single-family home under the Richfield Rediscover program. And I'm going to ask John Stark to make this presentation.
There we go. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. As you can see, I've put a rendering of the proposed house on the dais for you to see. John Hughes and Kathleen Walsh Hughes, along with T-Square Repair and Remodeling, have submitted an application to build a new single-family home at 6808 14th Avenue as part of Richfield Rediscovered. They're proposing to construct a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom home with a first-floor mother-in-law suite. The home will also have an attached 2-car garage. The home will be approximately 2,500 square feet with an end value of $315,000. Construction would begin as soon as a permit is issued and take approximately 5 months to complete. This is a lot that the HRA acquired in 2012. Was a double lot at the time. We acquired it for $110,000 and have since split it into two pieces. The appraised value of the lot that the HRA is selling or would be selling is $43,500. I'm just going to zoom in on the front elevation. And, I believe this is the 5th, if it were approved, this is the 5th Richfield Rediscovered home that would be approved in 2013. And we had, I believe, 9 in 2012. I do believe that either the builder or the homeowner is here if you have any questions for them.
Okay.
The homeowner.
Would you like to just say hello and?
Yeah, introduce yourself.
Yeah.
My name's John Hughes. Lived in Richfield most of my life, and I've done several large projects here in Richfield. This is the first time, though, that we're actually building a new home with a multi-generational suite. That's the new phrase versus the mother-in-law.
It isn't the kids hangout, it's,
Madam Chair.
No.
yes, go ahead.
Actually, this is getting quite a lot of press, and some communities are embracing it, and others, while others are not, because multi-generational family dwelling is something that we see some of our cultural diversity also take on, and I applaud you for, first of all, doing that. I don't know if I'd move in with my son, but I can understand if you get along, that's wonderful. I also wanted to know, and maybe staff can answer this, at 6808 14th Avenue, are they in the area where they have to look at the noise zoning, where they have to do something to abate?
It's close, I believe.
Yeah, it is, I don't believe it is in the
okay.
consent decree area. But I do know that in discussions with the builder, they were made aware of, any issues with, that they might want to consider.
And then I want to ask then you were fine with that then as well?
Yes,
so-
we're not really under the runway. We're just far enough off, and we're not in the max zone that would require the,
Special zone.
it's special. It's storm windows and dual pane windows. I mean, we have dual pane windows, obviously, but not requiring the extra,
Insulation.
yeah.
Mhm. You might want it for energy efficiency anyway.
Mr.
You
Geffen?
can. Yeah, we actually are renting a house right now that's in one of the max zones that has the heavier soundproofing in it. So, but that's almost right under a runway.
Okay, Mr. Geffen?
John, it's always interesting to know how folks have learned about this program. How did you come to be aware of it?
I've used the program since 1999. We did one house in 72nd and Columbus where we took a story and a half and turned it into a two-story current home. And that was quite the project. That was the first project, from my understanding with the HRA, that the budget was actually above $100,000. And then we did another project on 73rd and Park, where we took down, we remodeled a small house into a two-story, 3,500 square foot home. And now this is our third project, and we actually decided to go from new. And way back when, I would have heard about the project through the city. So I would have seen it in when the community flyers would go around or something like that.
So you lived in all those homes that you,
And stayed in
Yep.
Richfield.
And stayed in Richfield.
Okay.
So you plan on living on this house as well?
Yes,
Who's going to live in the multi-generation part?
my wife's mother.
Hot dog. Okay.
Anyone else have any further questions? All right, then we're going to open it up for a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak other than Mr. Hughes?
I
Going-
move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Is there a motion from the body here?
Then I would like to move that we authorize the execution of a contract for private development with John Hughes and Kathleen F. Walsh Hughes for the development of a single-family home under Richfield Rediscovered.
And would you like to do the first one as well?
I'd like to approve the resolution authorizing the sale of 6808 14th Avenue to John and Kathleen Hughes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations.
Yes. Another beautiful home.
Keep up the good work. Item number 6.
Thank you, Chair Sandal, members of the HRA. This is the consideration of resolutions approving proposed property tax levy for payable 2014 for certification to Hennepin County. And here we have the annual budget and tax levy process for the Housing Redevelopment Authority. This is the one time during the course of the year that we take a look at all the programs that we have and talk about the property tax levy, which is then ultimately certified at the at the end of the year. And I'm going to have Chris Regis, the city's finance manager, summarize the letter, and then we have a presentation that Mr. Stark is going to show.
Thank you, members of the board. Essentially, I'll just cut right to the chase. In previous years, with some of the new tax laws and things like that at the legislature, our tax levy has been decreasing. That's really due to the home market value exclusion part of the law. And since the tax levy is based on what the taxable market values of the city, if that market value is going down, the tax levy is going down. I'm thankful to say that the legislature in 2013 corrected that little glitch in the law, and they've now excluded the market value exclusion from the calculation to determine the tax levy for the HRA. And based on that, the levy represents a 3.24% increase over last year's. It's still below prior year levels, but it is a 3.24% increase, which I think is going to help the HRA a little bit. Every little bit helps the HRA because funding is one of their bigger issues, and that they need, so any little bit of money. And that's really pretty much all I've planned to say is that the levy has increased a little bit, and it's good news for the HRA. Any questions for John?
Just to confirm, it is the maximum levy that we can
It is the maximum levy, yes.
levy. Thank you. Mr. Stark?
Sure, maybe I'll just go through a brief presentation. It's probably maybe a little bigger picture than you want, but I know you were provided the numbers and all the detail from Finance Manager Regis, so if you have questions about the specifics, we can certainly get into those as well. So it should be on the screen and on the screens in front of you. Just to kind of remind you who we are, what the department's all about. Community Development currently has 17 full-time and 3 part-time employees. Our total proposed budget for 2014 is about $6.5 million. That budget represents about a $565,000 increase from the 2013 approved budget, which is a sizable increase of 9.5%. But about 20% of CD's proposed budget comes from the city, being the Inspections Division, the Planning and Zoning Division, and the Economic Development Division. So the HRA is only paying about $5.2 million of that budget. Of the HRA portion, there are 8.5 employees, full-time equivalent employees, that are funded by the HRA. And, you see Karen, Bart, and I quite a bit. I just like to remind you of all the people behind the scenes that do work for the HRA. Myself, at 65% of my salary is paid by the HRA. Assistant Director Barton is 82% of her salary paid by the HRA. Julie Urban and Kate Aitchison job share the housing specialist position. They get to do all the fun work, all the Richfield Rediscovered and all the transformation home loans and all the things that nobody ever has anything negative to say about. They're 100% funded by the HRA. Mert Link, the department accountant, is 85% funded by the HRA. Jackie Scott, I know you at least hear from via email, is also predominantly funded by the HRA. And then a couple other folks. And our Section 8 staff, on paper, they are 100% funded by the HRA, but that funding for those positions comes almost exclusively from the federal government. So the HRA just really acts as a pass-through on that. So the overall budget for the HRA is as follows. In 2013 approved, it was $4,700,000 and change. The 2013 revised that we're proposing is $5.6 million, and the 2014 proposed is $5.1 million. The HRA budget's a little bit different than the city budget in that it anticipates a best case scenario. It anticipates that all of our redevelopment areas are all going to have developments happening simultaneously, when that's rarely the case. And if you look over the past few years, you can see that normally the expenditures are 55 to 75% of what's actually budgeted. Just quickly going through some of the results that we've seen in the last year and a half since the last presentation. As I had said, 9 Richfield Rediscovered homes were constructed in 2012. We're expecting, actually, it's 6 or more new constructions in 2013. We think it will be 7 or 8. We've acquired 6 substandard homes for new homes this year, so lots, 6 new lots. That was last year, and another 6 so far this year. We allocated approximately $276,000 in CDBG funds to provide up to 12 deferred rehab loans to low-income households. We provided over $85,000 in transformation home loans to residents, which leveraged almost $600,000 worth of home improvements. We provided 4 FPIP loans, which returned 4 foreclosed properties to owner occupancy. We established an architectural consulting program where the HRA supplements the cost, subsidizes the cost of having an architect go into a homeowner's home and give them some architectural advice. The homeowner pays $50 and the HRA covers the rest. With Section 8, we provide vouchers to 300 families approximately, and then 28 families receive Kids at Home grants, and we conducted the housing visioning process. In terms of results in the redevelopment side of things, Lakes at Lindale has obviously seen a lot of development happening. Lindale Station, which is the LA Fitness and associated development, that was completed late last year. Lindale Commons, they started leasing out in November of last year, and they finished all their work up in the spring of this year. Lindale Gardens, as you know, has been demolished. Construction on Lake Winds is, I believe, starting within weeks. And then the remainder of it, construction would start next spring. And we completed the Lakes at Lindale connectivity plan. Cedar Corridor, we do work closely with Ryan on trying to help kind of clear any obstacles that they have. And they have been able to fill almost all the tenant spaces now by bringing in Anytime Fitness, Noodles & Company, and Papa Murphy's. We've coordinated the efforts with Public Works for the new Richfield Parkway, which include the establishment of a financing mechanism through the HRA. And all of the homes along Richfield Parkway have either been acquired or the purchase offer has been accepted, but there's some bank negotiations that have to occur. So in the next couple of years, what we're proposing is that we do all the things that we've always done with the addition of some of these new initiatives. One is that we're proposing a Penn Avenue facade improvement program, which would operate much like transformation home loans. And I should say, what I'm telling you here is what we're proposing and the bottom line associated with it. Each of these will come back to you individually with some specifics about how the program will work, and you can provide input as to how you think it should work. The thinking here is that this would work much like transformation home loans. The HRA would possibly provide 20-25% of the funding necessary to make facade improvements along Penn Avenue, and the property owner would make the rest, and that could be either deferred or forgiven at your discretion. What's being proposed there is $98,000 from the 2013 revised budget and $100,000 from next year's budget. Where that money is coming from, as proposed, is part of our community development block grant. And the reason for that is we've been using those funds for acquiring lots for the new home program. We've gone through and looked, we have quite an inventory of new home lots. Typically, the HRA is comfortable doing about 1 or 2 new homes a year. And new home, if you remember, is kind of the affordable housing version of Richfield Rediscovered. I think we've heard from the HRA, you don't want to do 3, 4, 5 of those a year. You're more comfortable with 1 or 2. So with the inventory we have, we can provide those for quite a few years. With the incomes in the census tracts around Penn Avenue, we are able to use community development block grants for this kind of use there. So that's what we're proposing. Second is a residential curb appeal program. It's kind of a pilot program. We're suggesting $20,000 to start. And to be honest, we don't know exactly how that's going to work. But the idea is money for homeowners to do work on their front porches, front steps, anything that's directly visible from the front of the yard, and we take any suggestions you have on how that might be best used.
Is that just for?
That's for everybody, everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
The third is a rental conversion program, and what we're proposing there is, for 2014, is $61,000. What this is, first, I'll go back to the $61,000. Currently, we're using that for the foreclosure incentive purchase program, and that uses HRA funds. That's something that staff had recommended to the HRA back in about 2007, when foreclosures were really coming at a high pace. And we've been able to do, 25 or so FPIP loans to get foreclosed properties into homeowners' hands. We're seeing the foreclosures really dropping down in numbers, and so we're suggesting that maybe we could use this money instead to take homes that are currently single-family homes but are being used as rental properties and encourage getting those converted back into owner-occupied. The thinking is perhaps it would be a grant/loan program. On the front side, there would be a grant to an existing homeowner to help them take care of some point-of-sale inspection required items if they agree to sell to a buyer who intends to homestead the property. The second piece would be then a loan to the buyer that homesteads it. That would be forgivable after the property being homesteaded for so many years. And again, the idea here is, in a lot of our single-family neighborhoods on every block, we hear from people saying, gosh, all the homes on my block used to be owner-occupied. Now we're seeing rentals popping up here and there, and this is a way to encourage that to change back. Economic development, and you guys are familiar with that. This is a new program through the city that's being staffed by Christine Costello to help small businesses primarily to grow, to locate in and grow in Richfield. Right now, the HRA would be paying about $107,000 in this year and next year for salary for that position. The Lakes at Lindale Connectivity Plan, there are all kinds of capital improvements that came out of that, whether they're benches, trash cans, traffic lights, bus stops. So we're proposing in next year's budget $40,000 for that. Marketing, we're proposing a $40,000 budget for that, and some of that was on the consent agenda. And then implementation steps for housing, the housing vision. You heard the housing vision presented to you in June, and that's something none of us want to see die on the vine. And so trying to find policy ways of implementing that. So here's some of the really specific numbers. And I think you've got the budget materials. You've had a chance to look at those. I think I'm just going to move on from this, and you can ask Mr. Regis any of the specific number questions you might have. The proposed levy, this chart shows what that's done over the past 7 years or so, how that's shrank because of market value and the exclusion of the market value homestead. But it's a small increase from 2014, $14,500 increase from 2014, which for a city of our size is really, on a percentage basis, a very small increase. And then again, looking at the approved HRA levy, or in the case of 2014, the proposed, as it compares to the maximum that the HRA could levy. And it's been the HRA's practice since 2008 to levy to the maximum. Again, that was with falling market values in an environment where the cost of operating the HRA was not falling at the same rate. So with that, Mr. Regis and Executive Director Devich and I would stand for any questions you might have about the budget.
Okay.
Madam Chair, first of all, I want to just say that, the innovation strategy slide, I'm really excited to see some of the creativity, some of the programs and some of the things that you're trying to address, some of the concerns we've had at goal setting sessions. This is wonderful. And I like some of the ideas that I'm hearing, and I'm kind of excited to see how they come to the next fruition. And then I'm also excited again because we're doing the marketing piece, because this is another thing that if we're going to try to replace these stoops, and I know it's actually Chair Sandal and myself who brought this up as we were door knocking, saying, boy, some of these are falling apart and they're looking terrible. We need to program some of these people. I'm sure can't afford to replace those, and here it is, trying to work on some of those great things. So I really applaud you in being creative, and we've always been a leader, and other cities have followed us and some of the ideas we've had, so thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I just want to thank you. It was extremely easy reading, understandable, clear. I appreciated that.
Any other comments? I will make one. Thank you for the paper version. I do not want to read it on the computer.
Yes.
All right. Hearing no further discussion, I'll move that we adopt the attached resolution approving the 2014 proposed Housing and Redevelopment Authority budget and tax levy and the 2013 revised Housing and Redevelopment Authority budget. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And HRA discussion items.
I would like to make just a comment that I failed to make previously on the consent agenda. I was very happy to see that Shadid Marketing is being commissioned and contracted for the marketing program. I've known Bill Shadid for about 15 years, and I've seen his professional development in marketing, and I really feel that we have a good person and an ethical person who is going to really give 100% for Richfield.
Super. Okay, anything? Yes.
Madam Chair, just one. I know that, and John, excuse me, because I talked to Karen Barton because you were out on vacation, much deserved, about a house that's for sale across the street from El Jalapeno Market down there. Are we looking like at that corridor to grab? That's a really small house too. Are we going to look to that? Because that's some tired kind of frontage. And is that even feasible?
Yeah, Madam Chair and Commissioner Gotel, where we've identified, I can't remember the terminology, I think corridor plans. So that would be Penn Avenue from the crosstown down to 68th or so, and then 66th Street from about 12th Avenue or so over to Cedar. We do look for homes and businesses to come up in that area on the market. And every time we see one, we evaluate whether it makes sense for us to get involved. We have acquired homes in both of those corridors in the past, so we will certainly take a look at that. The property that's the Clinton Press, or was the Clinton Press, that and a number of properties around it are also for sale. Staff kind of came to the conclusion there that it's an already fairly well-assembled piece of property, and we thought it would make more sense to let the market take a crack at that first. If it sits on the market for a while, that's something we may come to you with and say, you know, there's an opportunity here. But definitely some of the little pieces that by themselves aren't developable are pieces we would be looking to pick up.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything else from the HRA discussion items? Okay, Executive Director report.
Thank you, Chair Sandel, members of the HRA. I don't have a report, but I just simply want to say that I think that what you see with the budget that we presented to you tonight is a kind of a revitalization of looking at some of the innovation that we have not been able to do for the last several years. You know, looking at the initiation of the Richfield Business Council and just talking about marketing and looking at what's happening with the community in terms of redevelopment. I think that these things fit well and should serve the HRA well for the next budget year.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, we're looking for the claims and payroll. Is it up here? Have we got it buried someplace? Probably in my file.
It's on your computer.
But I can't sign it on my computer. I don't see it.
we can approve it if everybody's looked at it.
That is fine. Is there a motion to do that?
While we're waiting, I had a question about it, if that would be
Oh,
appropriate.
go ahead.
I don't know if you have the answer, but
Probably not.
it's a small item. I was just curious why we are hiring architects for the Hub Shopping Center.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Commissioner Kwong, this is something we've done in the past. You know, when we have an idea, and oftentimes it's something we hear from policymakers about how something could be done better, we'd like to share that idea with the property owner with some visuals to accompany it. In the case of the Hub Shopping Center, there is some concern in the community that Walgreens might be looking to develop a freestanding store somewhere in the vicinity of the hub. So for a Walgreens, we currently have a Walgreens at 66 and Nicollet. So for a Walgreens to relocate somewhere in the 66 and Nicollet area doesn't provide the community any additional benefit. It's still a Walgreens. But if they were to leave the hub, there is a detriment to the community. So we were working with the hub on showing them how they could accommodate a freestanding Walgreens on their existing site.
Thank you. If you ever get any good ideas for reconfiguring the parking lot around Rainbow, I think you should hire an architect for that, too.
We would all
Thank
like
you.
that, wouldn't we?
Well, as long as we have a few minutes while we're checking, I do want to comment that whenever we interview new move-ins and citizens applying for city commissions, we always ask them, well, why are they here? What brought them to Richfield? And they're here for various reasons, but most of them say, and we agree, that we're just a well-kept secret. Nobody knows about us. And I'm glad to see that we're doing the marketing so that people will know about us, and they'll come intentionally, not because they have friends here. So, which is okay, too. All right, is there go ahead.
Along that discussion, as part of being part of the Gateway Monument discussion group, was there some thought, Steve, on the part of the city to rebrand and come up with a different logo than the one that currently is on the back panel?
Commissioner Gepner, thank you. That's an interesting question. Right now, what's happening is the Richfield Tourism Promotion Board, they have used an advertising agency for quite some time. And more recently, the personnel from that agency that attend the board meetings, tourism board meetings, looked at the logo and then took a look at Richfield in terms of the Tourism Promotion Board, the Chamber of Commerce, and the city, and found that there was really a lot of different branding of those three, that they weren't really very homogeneous, so you don't necessarily look at something and very quickly see that it is, Richfield. And then even within the city, we use a couple of different, variations of our logo. And, I've had people say that our city logo looks dated. And it's from the early 1980s, back in the day when
it
they,
was done.
yeah, long time ago.
It was actually done in 90.
90, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute.
I moved here in
Yeah, 90.
'84, and it was
Really?
quite a few years after, yeah.
It was done just after I went out of office.
Okay, well,
So
I thought it was the late 80s, but anyway, at any rate, it's 20-some years old. I've had people say that it needs updating. And actually, the advertising agency that was looking at the Tourism Promotion Board said, it's something that, they could look at. And if there's any interest in the city, looking at it, we could, take a look at that sometime down the road. So, I mean, we're not anywhere near that point right now, but they throw out some interesting ideas where you could take, it's the basic colors that we've used at Richfield, this kind of the navy blue and the whatever color it is with it.
Magenta.
Is it magenta?
Magenta.
Okay.
Royal blue
And
and
building on
magenta.
that theme, but just looking at, what if you took that into the 21st century and, made a little, something more exciting and innovative? And so what they're going to do first is come back to the Tourism Promotion Board and the Chamber of Commerce, and then I think we could take a look at it. I mean, there's a lot to be said for changing the emblem or that a city has, because it involves changing a lot of other things at the same time. But, you know, there's also something to say about branding, and the city council has talked about branding and making sure that Richfield is aware of its branding and marketing. And so it's been a long, long time since we've looked at that whole concept. And that, I guess this would be one small part of it that we'll probably take a look at sometime in the probably within the next year or so.
I have one thing to report. I was sitting with an Edina city council person, and she was describing the developments they're doing on the Byerly's site, where they're building market rate apartments and some additional commercial with mixed use with commercial on the first floor. And then also at the hub, or not the hub, the Southdale, where they're adding more market rate housing. And I asked her, oh, well, did they have some policy about what percentage should be affordable? And it was kind of a very loose answer. Well, we always talk about it, you know, but we rarely get it, what we're asking for, she said. They do what they want to do.
You know, and to that, because city manager and I have had coffee with some folks over in Edina too, and they said that they have had a hard time pushing affordable housing, and they said, we'd really like some advice, and would you help us figure out how to do this and do this right? Edina has come to us and asked us, because they said they show that they need to do it, they just don't know how, and they haven't been very forthcoming in figuring out how to do it.
Well, of course, you know, that's Richfield School District still.
Well, we've been discussing those borders as well.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to move claims and payroll based on the assumption that we all have the opportunity to look at it on the computer.
Yep.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we stand adjourned. Oh. On our next meeting, we need to have a backup for the secretary. So, unless we want to unadjourn.
Next meeting.
No, just that when you're not here, who signs for the secretary? Yeah.
Those were approved tonight, that's the.
Did you find it?
They desperately want.
Okay. So I am the chair. That's good.
I don't know, I was gonna ask you.
Was that Mr. Rish? Was that
No?
the marketing person?